This film is made possible by contributions from Metaswish Network, A Better Tomorrow, and London Film Foundation, passionate about films.
Some of the most inspirational people that I have ever met are people in recovery.
I sort of knew quite early on that Mum was an alcoholic. Growing up with her, I was always the one that was always looking in her bags to see if there was bottles of drink and that.
Unfortunately lost a nephew to suicide. That was followed 3 months later. By another suicide.
I should have dealt with that better. But again, it wasn't me, it was the alcohol, wasn't it?
They're painful memories, but my girls have got their dad back today.
The Good Samaritan Network was sparked by two constituents coming to see me who were expressing their concerns about issues of addictions and mental illness. In fact, there was an individual that they'd seen on the streets in Enfield who was obvious issues going on, that he was under the influence of alcohol and had mental issues. And they didn't walk on the other side. They themselves acted as Good Samaritans. They decided to speak to that person and find out what's going on and try and seek some kind of support. And what they did, and what impressed me as they told me the story, is that they took that young person to the local police station. But they didn't just stay there, they found out to see if he was going to get any support or help or just simply be left on the bench. And then they continued to follow up to get him the necessary support at the hospital. And they didn't just leave it there, they then followed up and tried to make sure that this individual then went on to the next step. And this carried on and on. They were that recovery in the community, that principle that we're not just simply going to let people sit on the road and not worry about them, that we all have a shared concern about people's recovery journey. And so they did this all the way through till eventually that individual was able to be reunited with a family member in Ireland and now is in recovery, no doubt helped by those two Good Samaritans who are local Samaritans who helped trigger off and inspire the Enfield Good Samaritan Network. Some of the most inspirational people that I have ever met are people in recovery. You will shortly be seeing and hearing of those lives that have been transformed from being in the pit of despair, heading in and out of police stations, prisons, hospitals, on the streets, to lives that can tell a story of great power and inspiration to us all.
Well, it started off really with alcohol, which led to my drug taking over a number of years. But I think, and I've heard it said before, but I think I was born to be an alcoholic. It was always in me from as young as I can remember, going to scout discos, buying a bottle of woodpecker cider at the time, and there was an alleyway that used to run along up to where the hall was. It was in the church hall, and there'd be about 4 or 5 of us, and we'd get a couple of bottles, and they'd all be drunk by the time we got there. I'd be drunk as well, but I just needed to carry on drinking. And I'd carry on until blackout, and that was at the age of 14. That's the earliest memory that I've got. I used to drink cider, but then it progressed to bottles of brandy, and it'd be 2 bottles of brandy a day, plus ciders. And it took me to Chase Farm Hospital, where I was admitted, and immediately put onto a life support machine. And I was induced into a coma, and I had just about every machine keeping me alive. And my family tell me now that at one stage the doctors and the nurses have given me a 5% chance of living, and they were all called down to the hospital to say goodbye to me. My wife, she knew that I had a drink problem, and she gave me so many chances. I threw it back in her face every time, you know, and as soon as everything was okay again, I'd stop drinking for a month, and everything was okay and we were happy, and that sort of gave me the green light to start all over again. When I broke up, and because I was still drinking, It's a very selfish disease, alcoholism, and I sort of neglected the kids because I thought that they were okay, their mum was looking after them. Now my oldest one, Lee, she actually said to me when I told you the story about driving Charlotte home in the car, she actually turned around to me and said, "Dad, if you want to kill yourself, then go and kill yourself, but don't take my sister's life." And that really hit hard. And she used to tell me what she thought, and she'd tell me off, and she'd had enough. But Charlotte really worried me, because she was quiet, she never said anything, apart from, "Dad, it's all right, Dad, it's okay." And she used to cry and she used to hug me, and that still wasn't enough to make me stop drinking. And I don't know whether it's affected anything at school, but their mother told me that both of them used to cry themselves to sleep sometimes. And this was when I was in hospital and after I got out of hospital as well, because I started drinking again. And they just thought, he is going to kill himself. You know, fair play to their mother, because she's brought them up through all this. But I think without them seeing the change in their dad and getting their dad back in their life has made a tremendous difference to them. And they just make me so proud. They really do. And you know, I know that if I had one drink today, I'd go back to that life, and I've got everything to lose today. I just want to keep myself on track this time, because, like I say, my mum, my dad, they don't give me sideways glances now when they see me. It's a big smile, I want a hug, and "How are you, son?" And that just means so much to me. It's fantastic. And do I regret the past? Yeah, of course I do. I wish I'd never, because I've missed a big chunk of my girl's life, them growing up and different stages of their schooling and stuff. But having gone through what I've gone through, I think it's made me a better person today, because I don't judge people. I live life to the full, and I live life one day at a time. And I don't get angry with people. I do sometimes if somebody cuts me up in a car, but you know, that's I let it go, and I love it, and that's what recovery has done for me. There was an occasion, and I've told this story at AA meetings, and it sounds like a funny story to start with, but it sort of finished, and it's something that's always played. It's always affected me. Where everyone was following me around and I was drinking, and they would search my bedroom, they would follow me up and down the road and everything, and I had to find a way to be able to get a drink. And I actually invented a girlfriend, and she was superb. She was exactly right for me, and her name was Jodie, and she was a nurse. She didn't smoke, she didn't drink. She lived in a nice apartment overlooking a park, and I used to go and stay with her at weekends and during the week, and in reality I was actually in a crack house in Ponders End. That's where I was, and I'd get home and my dad would say, "You all right, son?" And I'd say, "Yeah, good." He'd say, "How's Jodie?" And I'd go, "Who?" "Oh yeah, my girlfriend, yeah, oh yeah." But after a little while, everyone used to say to me, well, my mum, my dad, my cousins, my mates, "Bill, this Jodie, but how comes none of us have ever met her, none of us have ever spoken to her?" And I thought, oh, this is getting a little bit much now. They're gonna, I've got to do something about it. So I actually killed her off, and told them that she died from a disease that only 1 in 10,000 people get, and that if it had been diagnosed 15 years earlier and they tried to treat it, she would have died. This is how my alcoholic head is working, just lies and lies. And on the day of the funeral, I actually got up, got dressed, put on a suit, a shirt, black tie, and I didn't have any money for drink, so I asked my dad if he could lend me some money to get some flowers for the funeral. And he lent me some money. I got in touch with my drug dealer, and I had cocaine on me, and I had drink on me. I don't remember what happened that day. People talk about blackouts, and this is honestly, I do not remember what happened that day. But I remember leaving. I know I looked very smart that day, and I remember coming home. And when I came home, I was so drunk, and I told everyone that I wasn't drinking. And I said to my dad, I fell through the door, and I said to my dad, "Dad, I'm so sorry, mate, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm drunk again. And he walked up, and my dad's not very affectionate, but the first time in my life that I can remember, he walked up, he put his arm around me, and he said, "That's all right, son, I understand." He said, your girlfriend's just died. And that just really, really ate me up, that I'd lied and the deviousness of what I'd gone through. And that really haunts me. And my dad is the only person that doesn't know that that's not true still today. They're painful memories, but my girls have got their dad back today. When they see me now, they a big smile on their face and a big kiss, and they trust me. And that means so much. You know, people talk to me about making amends to people. Well, the biggest amends I can make, and they've said this to me, is not to pick up a drink or a drug each day. And I just automatically become a better person through that.
I sort of knew quite early on that Mum was an alcoholic. Growing up with her, sort of, I was always the one that was always looking in her bags to see if there was bottles of drink and that. We had quite a turbulent relationship, me and Mum. I didn't approve of obviously her drinking sort of thing, and really I couldn't wait to sort of, I suppose, leave the family home. I didn't actually touch drugs though till later on in my life, and I must have been about 27, 28. Looking back, why I started taking drugs was just recreational really. I enjoyed the buzz, I enjoyed the feeling. The saddest moment would have been 2007 when I got sectioned under the Mental Health Act. I got put in hospital for a month. But obviously I didn't realise that when I first got sectioned, because drinking heavily from morning till night and smoking cannabis, skunk cannabis from morning to night. It wasn't until about 2-3 days later that I came round that I realised I'd been put in this hospital and I couldn't get out, and I was in there for a month. So reality, that was the saddest day of my life, that my poor little girls were at home and I was stuck and I couldn't get out. My children just, luckily for my children and for my sake, I had my cousin who was really close to, and my friend Marie. They were the children's main support, because in their eyes, to see their mum act the way I used to do, talking to the telly, ripping pots out of the garden and throwing them through the front, into the front garden, you know, trying to bend the rotary line where I'd gone absolutely manic. They just didn't know what to do. So luckily, you know, them having my cousin there to sort of look after them, but when they used to come and visit me in Chase Farm, they knew I still weren't right. I mean, it affected their schooling. It affected my elder daughter, where she started self-harming. It affected Chloe, anger issues, which we still have to this day. I loved my girls, even when I was in the absolute madness of it. They always came first in my ideas, even though I wasn't emotionally there for them. I really didn't realise. I remember when I used to go and see my psychiatric nurse, she used to say to me, "But Jane, you're not there for emotionally." And I go, "But I am." But now, you know, 2.5 years clean, standing back, I know I wasn't there for emotionally. You know, they lived in sort of such a chaotic lifestyle, you know, the relationships, the men that I brought home, me going out to meet dealers and just leaving them in the house on their own. I know I wasn't emotionally there for them. And that actually puts a smile on my face, because I've been on such a journey. I entered treatment 2005 and then again 2007, but wasn't ready. 2009 was the starting point for me. It was either drug, alcohol or my children, and I chose my children. And I just can't believe, you know, the journey that I've had. I went into recovery in 2009. In July, I had my last drink and drug, the 20th of September 2009, and I haven't looked back since. It's been brilliant, to be honest. I mean, obviously I've had highs and lows, but what I've done is what was asked of me. People that I found within the service would put suggestions my way, and I could see they all had good recovery. So I just thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And so the fellowship meetings, AA, NA, MA, all the different fellowship meetings out there, support groups. I got myself onto little literacy courses and that, and gradually I sort of began to build my confidence and started to feel worthy as a person, because of the drink and the drugs. I was just existing. Today, I am a trainee drug and alcohol worker. I've been volunteering at Compass for the last 2 years. It's completely changed my life. You know, what I've learned, I feel like now I'm able to give back to the community and help others that are going through similar things that I've been through. They're proud. They're really proud. They know I'm there for them now. They know I'm not, because of my drink and drugging. Alright, even though I had periods of depression where I couldn't wash, I couldn't feed them, I'd lay on the settee for days on end. But there was also times when mummy was manic, where I thought every day was a party, so I still didn't want to do things for them. So now, I can cook for them, have time to listen to them in their homework. Just to be there, I mean, for instance, I went out, they took me out for Mother's Day last Saturday evening, and it was really lovely just to sit there, have something to eat with them. Didn't need any alcohol, that obsession of alcohol years ago, that I had to have a drink, just to sit there and have a meal with my 2 children and listen to them tell me about what's going on in their life. It's lovely.
I don't really know what started me off drinking, because drinking it's like the English tradition, isn't it? Everyone goes out for a pint, has a laugh and a joke. And I remember starting with a puff first, like puffing, because I had a car, I was 17, and my mates were like my brother's mates. I used to hang out with my brother. People my age and older than me didn't really interest me. I suppose because of the influence. I was the geezer with a motor, so I could sort of influence and be the top dog. So we used to go out puffing and stuff, because like I said, you can't in those days, you couldn't breathalyse someone for puffing, but drinking you could. So the stigma with drinking and driving was no good, but I thought it's all right to take a drug. So we used to puff and that, and go out, find places where we could just park the motor and just puff all night. And then that wasn't enough. I needed something else. So I started using LSD, but not driving. We used to just go over to the park and just get lost and puff and take a little tab and that. And then speed come into it. We started going out to a place called Roller Express in Everton. So we used to go there and we used to do like, a gram of speed or something and have a little puff to bring ourselves down and that sort of stuff. But I always remember having a little drink in between. It wasn't really a problem. It wasn't just a small part of my life, because the drugs, I don't know, seemed to be more sociable at that point. But then obviously as I grew up, I grew a bit older, and my brother's mates, they went off and had girlfriends, and some of them moved away. I seemed to be stuck in Enfield on my own, while everyone else sort of like their life was progressing. And I was thinking, what's the matter with these people, getting birds and whatever else, And so I started going more to the pubs and like meeting some older mates and that, and drinking. My father leaving me leaving the family home when I was 3, and my mum was in labour with my brother, just got with another woman and just left, didn't have a care, just went. And I think my personality sort of changed. And I was only 3, but I just seemed to have no confidence. And through school, although I'd been a big bloke like I am now, and I was still tall then, but I was like picked on and bullied because of it. And didn't really have any male mates. I just used to have girl mates. And although that was quite good, but there was no sort of male structure. I couldn't sort of get a grips with a bloke, you know, and have like a good friendship. I always seem to think, I suppose, they're going to let me down in some way. And the drugs gave me confidence, especially, mostly the ecstasy gave me confidence. The blokes that I got with at a young age were taking the drugs. So for me to have any sort of male influence in my life, I felt I had to do that with them. And they were going clubbing, they were taking whatever, and I was just, it did give me like, oh, you know, like a euphoric sort of, I could talk to anyone. And I was a very clowned up person. I remember my 18th birthday, just sitting in my room, writing poems of gloom and doom, and then going out for a walk and then just walking home. Because I had no one. There was no one in my life. So the drugs, I suppose, became my best mate, and the bottle became my best friend. Maybe my own doing, I don't know. Maybe the influence of what's happened in my life, I don't know. But all I know is that it didn't do me any favours. It gave me a false sense of euphoria, a false sense of being able to talk to people, and I thought getting on with people and all that. But in the end, I suppose, because I liked the feeling and I wanted it so much more, I took so much of it. And I was always the first one at the party and the last one to leave if I wasn't kicked out, because I made such a ruckus. And my brother was the family man. He passed away through cancer. He was 36. I used on that big time. And I shouldn't have done. But anyway, you know, shit happens, as they say, but I should have dealt with that better. But again, it wasn't me, it was the alcohol and the drugs telling me I should get on one. And I got on one on his, after the funeral, you know, at the wake, I got on one. I'd been out the week before. I was supposed to see him on Saturday, the Saturday before he went, and I was having a drink, and I phoned up for some coke, and the guy came and got on it, and I phoned him up and let him down. And unfortunately, that was one of the last times I would have seen him properly, and I could chat with him in it. And drinking drugs took that away from me. Stupid. You know, what I've been through, what I'm going through, even now what I'm going through. Fighting the demons, battling. It's not always a battle, it's always a war, do you know what I mean? It's always going to be there, but you don't have to fight it. It just comes over in waves, you know, but I think I've dealt with everything now that I need to deal with that could push me back to a drink or a drug. I mean, I know this is a horrible thing to say, but when my brother went and I was drinking and drugging, I knew I had to stop. A little part of me said, the only person that cares for you now is your mum. Now she's 64, now if she went, you'd have a green light, there'd be no one to stop you. So I was not, someone say I was wishing her dead, but my brain was saying, you know, once she goes, well, no, there's no one else there, is there? You ain't got, you know, your family's all gone. So, you know, your sister's got a boyfriend, you can just get on it and go for it. And that was the demon, the drug demon in me telling me, And now I'm sober. Oh, Jesus. Even thinking that repulses me, you know. And that just shows you how strong it is and how evil it is. And well, thank God I'm sober today.
I believe my drinking probably became what I would call problematic around about 2006, when I unfortunately lost a nephew to suicide. That was followed 3 months later by another suicide of my brother. I then had 2 more brothers die, the last one in 2009, and I actually found him dead in his bed. A week later I received a phone call that totally blew my mind and resulted in the breakdown of my 20-year marriage and 32-year relationship with my children's father. I'm now divorced from him, and I rapidly realised through the period in running up to December 2009 that I had become very dependent on alcohol just to get me through the days. And it wasn't an everyday thing, it was depending on what was going on. I was using alcohol as self-medication. I felt very isolated within my own head, but then I rapidly realised after I went to my GP for help that I needed professional guidance. The turning point for me was the effect it was having on me mentally. And I, as I said, went to my GP. I disclosed what was going on, and that was one of the things I hadn't done. I tried to keep everything buried inside. And I'm just quite grateful for the services that I have used in Enfield, and my gratitude to my family and friends of old and new friends I've made through actually entering into what I class as my recovery period. Compass were brilliant. They offered me, initially I was entered into the women's group. I found that very therapeutic. It made me realise that I wasn't on my own and that it was okay to say, I'm not okay. And the important thing for me to be able to do was to talk about how I was feeling to somebody impartial that wasn't, you know, close to me or family or very close friends. Because obviously there was a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, resentment, bitterness going on. But they offered me support, and I remained there from January 2010, and I graduated from the service in October 2010. I was given a key worker, I was given counselling, I had very good support group. My peers there helped me a lot. Plenty of advice on my whole well-being. As a person, a whole person, helped me to re-establish my own identity with myself, my relationship with myself. My most regrettable point in my life when I was drinking was not being there emotionally for especially my youngest daughter, and the impact it's probably had on her. However, as I said, I can only work forward and try and rebuild the relationship with her and be there for her when she needs me, and just make sure that I'm there, and that to let her know and reassure her that I'll always be there.
Addictions and mental illness matter to all of us. Whether you are concerned about a friend, or a member of the family, or a neighbour, or a stranger. The issues of addiction and mental illness are a concern for us all. And that is why the Enfield Good Samaritan exists. It exists to say very loud and clear that we support recovery in the community, and that in order to support sustained recovery, it is an issue that is of concern for all of us. And that's why the Enfield Good Samaritan Network is providing the opportunity to bring everyone together, to bring, yes, politicians, but also those individuals who are concerned about the issues of addiction and mental illness, those individuals who themselves are in recovery and have a wonderful story to tell of leading other people through that difficult journey of recovery, and also those services who are working hard day in, day out to promote and support recovery. So we're bringing that all together and working very hard to make sure that we can say very positively in Enfield, recovery is out there.